you're going to be mad at me today. Some of you, because I always get the comments. If I talk about straight news all the time, that happens to come across my desk. It's like, oh, I don't want to hear about the news too much. If I'm talking about entertainment stuff, oh, it's too fluffy. What happened to this? Listen, chill out. Let me just lay this out one more time, because what I do actually is a little bit different. I'm not all politics. I'm not all fluff and entertainment or feel-goody news. Listen, I just talk about what society and what the news brings us and give you the mindset and how to deal with it. That's all I do. So with that said, some of the biggest stories that came out yesterday were Trump talking about Kiss. Taylor Swift had a massive new album release. And just to make sure that you don't think this is all fluff, we'll give you a crime update as well. All right? Is that a nice balance? Will that work? I don't make the rules. I don't decide what the news is. We just talk about it. Thanks for finding me, by the way. Wicked Wisdom with Bill Adams, the live stream, Wicked Radio. Thanks for being here. As always, if you're watching, listening on the replay later on, thanks for being here. Notifications on, follow, download, all of that stuff, whatever. I just thank you for being here. All right. Just so you think it's not all fluff, let's start it off with the news story that won't go away, because this really truly is one of those big societal changing kind of things. And I have to say, with the crime crackdown in D.C., starting in D.C., and that's relevant to the story, I think, I got to say, if you didn't think this was coming, I'm sorry, you haven't been paying attention, because Law and Order, here it is again, it was what? I'd put it top 3? One of the campaign promises from Trump? Because what they do is they just read the pulse of the nation, and let's admit it, Trump is very good at this, and it was a massive thing. It was a massive voting issue. It was for me, for anybody that has to deal with a big city. It's not just in the cities, but that's where you start. And you start in Washington, D.C., because symbolically, like he said, with his dirty restaurant door example, his analogy, you start there because it's symbolic for the rest of the country, right? It's a big issue for me. I have a daughter that goes to school in New York. You think I'm not concerned about crime and crime statistics, despite how they try to play it off and they try to, weasel around. You can, listen, with statistics, you can present it any way you want to make your argument. But in the real world and how this works, if you see this stuff, if you're affected by it, if you actually know what's happening in society in big cities, it's out of control. Anybody can tell you that. So, with that said, the talking heads all week long, as we talked about yesterday, have been saying it's an authoritarian dictatorship. It's a takeover. Well, most people have realized by now, most common sense people like you have realized it's not a takeover. They're offering federal assistance to the police in Washington, D.C. And the update so far, I have it at this. Saw an update this morning, just a couple of hours ago, actually. They're over 150 arrests so far from the assistance from the feds, so that's good. And sure enough, you're starting to hear from D.C. residents. The people that you never hear from. They finally got through the talking heads and they talked to people that were actually affected by all this stuff. Like real working class people. What do you think the reaction has been so far from real people? Not the political operatives, not the talking heads in mainstream media. Real people that live in that city. What's their reaction? Overwhelmingly positive, because you're making their streets safer. Of course they are. Of course it is, despite how they try to spin it. But here's where we've gone from right now. Now, as I told you this was coming a couple of days ago, this is the start. You start in Washington, D.C. because it's in your neighborhood, right? If you're the Trump administration, this is where you start, and then it heads to other cities. And you got to know that the other city mayors know about this. They know it's coming, and they are in a panic because all of their incompetence and all of their fraud and all of these local yokel DAs that have given criminals and criminal gangs and young violent offenders slap on the wrist and no cash bail and all this other stuff, they know the crackdown is coming because it's got a massive popular appeal among the nation. Like I said, top 3, for some people, it was the top voting issue going into this past election. They want help. Well, big city mayors know this, and like I said, they're in a panic. Let's go. You want proof? Let's go yesterday to, I think it was Jake Tapper talking to this lady. She's the mayor of Oakland, California. You been to Oakland recently? You know what that place looks like? Looks like Baghdad. Well, here's what she says. This might be the biggest self-own in media. Listen to her reasoning.
But let me just say also, it's not lost on anyone that the cities that he is calling out first of all, have large numbers of Black and brown people. Secondly, the crime rate is going down in all of these cities. Thirdly, they're all headed by Black mayors. Now, what does that say? What does that picture paint?
It paints the picture not that you're aware of. That's a massive self-own because it's got nothing to do with the fact that you're a Black mayor. It's got nothing to do with the fact that you've got Black residents primarily, in the majority in your city. It's got everything to do with your incompetence. That's what it says. But of course, what do? When they actually want to crack down on crime, and then they look at the polls and they say, oh my God, people in our city actually like this. Like working poor people who never have a voice. They're in favor of this. What do we do? What are we going to do? Well, you know the answer. What do they do like she just did? Oh, it's a racism thing. Oh, that's right. Okay. Wow. What are they admitting? So cracking down on crime is racist. He actually got, whether he wanted it to or not, Trump actually got these corrupt, incompetent local yokel mayors to say that law and order is racist. I don't know. Here's what affects you and me. If this was a major issue for you, was for me, I told you that, is one of my top, I'd put it at my second most important voting issue for me personally. It just was. Like I said, vested interest in this. Travel a lot to cities. I'm in there. I got a daughter going to school in New York City. Scared to death every single day of this crime. Do I want law and order? Do I want to crack down? Yes, I do. So they know it's coming. It's not going to stop at Washington, D.C., and they're in a panic. The reason why you're hearing the panic right now, don't buy it. It's because they know that they're completely incompetent. So that's coming. All right. Are you satisfied? Is that the serious news? So now I can talk about the fluffy stuff? This was one of my favorite things of the year yesterday, and I actually happened to see this. Like you probably saw the clip of it. I'm a big rock fan, and I've, as a kid of the 70s and 80s, I grew up with Kiss. I've always been a big fan. I'm massively. And I happened to catch this live for whatever reason. I was doing some work online. I pop on my phone and say, oh, what's Trump talking about? Let me go to this live press conference now. And I hear him say this, and I thought it was a fake video.
And finally, we'll be honoring one of the greatest rock bands of all time, Kiss. So Kiss was formed in 1973 in New York City by founding band members, and incredible people, by the way, Paul Stanley, Gene Simmons, Ace Frehley, and Peter Criss. Kiss became a global phenomenon, sold more than 100 million records worldwide, and produced 30 gold albums and lots of other things they produced. They made a fortune.
What a world. We got Trump talking about Kiss. This is all part, of course, the Kennedy Center honors. And not only Kiss going in there. December 8th, it's going to be George Strait, who's awesome, by the way. George Strait is great. Country artist. Not very exciting on stage. That's okay. He's awesome. Michael Crawford, Sly Stallone, and Gloria Gaynor going on there, too. But this was, I thought this was so cool. I absolutely loved it. With all that, this is one of those other controversial things, by the way. I think he fired the board of the Kennedy Center, these left-wing lunatics and all this other stuff. Well, this brings him back into the fold, doesn't it? This was amazing. But I will tell you, I got to tell you, I had some fear going into this because as a Kiss fan, I know that they've, been battling internally for years and years and years. That's just been going on and on and on. And there's also this. Well, they're going to accept the honor, right? Please tell me they won't do something stupid because I don't think, especially Gene and Paul, are probably the biggest Trump fans. I don't know. So I did have my concerns. And I was concerned about this too, and maybe you're aware of this issue. During COVID, Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons had said some really stupid things about vaccinations and masks. They did, like really stupid things. So I was a little bit worried about that, and it pissed off a lot of the fan base as well. But sure enough, I think it was a couple of hours after the Kennedy Center announcement, to allay everybody's fears, these statements from the band came out, and it was awesome. And I'll get to the takeaway and what this means and how you handle things professionally here in just a second. Gene, of course, talking to TMZ, says Kiss is the embodiment of the American dream. We're deeply honored to receive the Kennedy Center honor. Oh, that's a good sign. Well, what's Paul Stanley say? From our earliest days, Kiss has embodied the American ideal that all things are possible and that hard work pays off. The prestige of the Kennedy Center honor can't be overstated. Blah, blah, blah. He's honored. Of course, Paul Stanley talks a lot. Ace Frehley. Called the honor a dream come true I never thought would materialize. And Peter Criss, I feel so blessed. This is the greatest honor of our career. Now, as a celebrity, that's how you handle it. Fantastic. Outstanding. Put your political differences aside. It's always that example we always talk about. If going back to Joe Biden or Clinton or Obama or anybody politically you disagree with, if you got an invite to the White House, let's say, of course you go for the honor, despite your political opinions. And I don't know whether the guys in KISS actually like Trump or not. Who the hell knows? But it didn't matter. And that's why that was handled so beautifully. I love that response. That's exactly what we should do. They're going for the honor. Like I said, it's going to be on December 8th. I love it. Would all celebrities do that, handle it that way? Not in this day and age. We have football players who win the Super Bowl who refuse to go to the White House for political reasons. All that crap, all that nonsense. Put that aside and receive the honor for your fans, for yourself, and for your country. I thought this was so cool. Just the fact that Trump was talking about KISS. I'm like, what world are we living in? I don't know, but I love it. Fantastic. And by the way, I'm stealing a line. My good buddy Mark, also a big rock fan. We were texting back and forth last night about this. And he said the greatest line that I'm going to steal. He said, if Trump can bring Gene, Paul, Ace, and Peter together, he can do anything. I can't say it any better than that. Thank you, buddy. And he's right. So if he can bring the original members of KISS back together for an honor, and he says they're going to do something special, he probably actually will broker peace between Ukraine and Russia. I don't know. We'll see. I love it. Speaking of fluff, are you ready for this? Taylor Swift broke the internet. There's a bigger story than this, though. I'm not just going to Swifty out and start talking about this stuff. But this was a massive, massive point of discussion at dinner last night with my wife and one of my daughters. We were there. We're at the restaurant. We're talking 80% of the dinner time about the new Taylor Swift album. And I got all the details. I got the all the different covers that were there. I got the details about what the songs are, the collaborations that are on it, how they did it. And I had already known this because this was a massive news story. Hey, like I said in the intro, we don't determine what the news is that comes to us. We just talk about how we're going to deal with it all, right? And what the takeaway is. And the takeaway on this is, this is a shining, beautiful, big example that media now is completely different. First of all, here's the announcement. Taylor Swift on her boyfriend, fiance, what are they? I don't know. I'll have to ask my daughter. Travis Kelce and Jason Kelce have that podcast called New Heights. Broke the internet. At one point live, there were 1.3 million people watching this announcement because they knew she was going to be on there. Mostly Swifties, of course there were. But it's a big podcast anyway. As of today, as of this morning, and it's probably even millions more if you're watching this or listening to this later on today, over 8 million people watched the complete podcast on YouTube. Over 8 million and counting. So it's probably 10 by now. I don't know. But this was the announcement. This is what broke the internet, everybody.
This is my brand new album.
Oh my God, and the Swifties went crazy, and it's huge, and oh my God. Here's what's different. Here's what matters. And I'm telling you, and maybe you don't like Taylor Swift, whatever. I happen to admire her. I don't know. Not the music so much, but admire her as a personality because she is a monster high-performing individual. She just is. Here's what's different, and this is why you got to understand this. My takeaway is a little bit different. If this announcement had come out 5 years ago, 3 years ago, let's put it at 3 years ago, right? Where would she have made this announcement? Some sort of deal with the Today Show or a big MTV release, right? Maybe a pay-per-view thing, I don't know, NBC, CBS morning show, something like that, some sort of marketing deal, right? What I'm getting at is mainstream traditional media. Flash forward to the year of our Lord 2025. Where does this go? You know what I'm going to say. Where did the announcement happen? What broke records? And it actually did. I think it overwhelmed the streams at some point. New media. A podcast with these two guys. Granted, it's a big podcast already, but this is the takeaway, and this is what you should understand about this. Media is completely different. Who are most of the Swifties? Young girls up to into their 30s, right? This is where they get their information now. This is what they're online. They're online watching and listening to podcasts. YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and streams. The media is completely different now. And people who don't understand that, who still think the traditional mainstream networks are it, or I hate to say it, but even traditional radio, you don't get that. You don't get that it's all changed. You're food for these kids because they are way, way past you. I mean, this was massive. 1.3 million people watching this live, and I'll put it at, 10 million plus watching the entire podcast. This is the media now. And this is why you have all these talking heads on traditional media freaking out because they have lost control. They've lost. Elon always says we are the media now. That's exactly right. He's exactly right. And I think it's exciting as hell. I really do. I think it's great because the truth gets out there. Things are completely different, and I love it. Here's something else that's completely different. Yes, this ties into that young generation as well, so it gives me a nice segue. A segwa, as we used to say in the dumb radio days. The sober parade rolls on. Remember I was talking, this was probably about a month and a half, maybe 2 months ago. There was an update about Gen Z, younger than millennials, that they don't drink. They just don't. And this kind of sent the alcohol industry and bar industry into a panic. Because let's face it, as a business story, this really affects them, doesn't it? Well, now some follow-up information has come out because they did a study since then. They put all the numbers together and they surveyed, apparently, according to Gallup, I know, Gallup polling has its flaws, but still, it's a massive polling industry. Thousands of Gen Zs and millennials to ask them. And the result is the number of Americans who drink has hit an all-time low. Now, alcohol industry, beer producers, bar owners, chains, restaurants, this is big news for them. So they found that 54% of us, this is everybody, all demographics, sometimes have a drink or two. 54%. So they'd call it moderate light drinking or whatever. Lowest since Gallup started tracking it in 1939. That's right. And who's leading the sobriety parade? Just like we said, all the indicators were there. Gen Z. Kids. They're not. Now, the causes, I don't know. Socially, it's a lot different. I think, my personal opinion, I think the whole COVID thing and shutting kids in, socially, it changed everything. They meet people online now. They don't go to bars and restaurants. They don't drink as much. Will there always be a drug there? There'll be something for escapism? Of course there will be. But apparently it's not alcohol. Now, let's follow this up now because it's a massive business story. So let's go to Financial Times that picked this story up as well. The exact same numbers. Even Gen Z is over it. Over half of 18 to 34s, that would be what they call Gen Z, don't drink at all. So people up to 34 years of age, nothing. Completely, totally, at least alcohol sober. Maybe it's moved on to pot. Maybe it's other things. Maybe, I don't know, whatever it is. But alcohol, completely different. Now, there are two takeaways on this. First of all, if you're somebody that really has wanted to, of any age, like if you're our age, has really wanted to stop drinking, this is good news for you. Because socially, most people will tell you the hardest thing about stopping drinking or cutting it out or going sober or whatever are the social aspects. Because there actually is still peer pressure among our age group. Middle-aged dudes like me. It's like, oh, come on, have another beer. My whole life. I grew up in a drinking culture, so I totally get it. If you wanted to, this helps you. Because sobriety is becoming, it's happening in society. It's becoming cool. It just is. And there's another takeaway on this. There's another thing that may benefit you as a parent of one of these Gen Zs of that age group. It just got a lot easier for you to try to convince them to stay away from alcohol if you wanted to, completely, because that's what's happening. This is a massive thing, and it's really not just about booze, even though it's bad news for the alcohol industry. This is one of those societal changing things that has a massive impact going forward, because it doesn't just affect the alcohol companies. Like I said, it affects bars, restaurants, clubs, sporting events. What happens to all that TV advertising for all this stuff? Do they boost it up again? What about all the alcohol? What about all the beer ads you see at a professional sports event or a concert? What happens to all that? Does all this change? Yup. I don't know what's going to look like in the future, or I don't know what drug of choice or whatever it is that they go to, but it ain't alcohol. It's just not. It's kind of like with the Taylor Swift thing we were talking about. All their information is different. You better learn it now. All their fun is different, too. Better learn it now. You're going to be lost in the woods. We're going to be the dinosaurs in the corner reading a newspaper and smoking a cigarette. That's going to be us compared to these kids. If you don't understand where they're going, right or wrong, we're going to look really old really fast. So get hip to it and where they get their information and where they get their fun, because it's not what we're used to. And overall, maybe that's a great thing. Maybe. I don't know. All right, well, that was an interesting one. Taylor Swift, Kiss, and crime. I don't determine what the news is. I just tell you how to handle it. And thanks for being here. I appreciate you. Audio podcast listeners, a lot of you are doing this. Thank you. Whatever your favorite platform is right now, when this wraps up, press download or subscribe so you know when the new episodes are coming out. And speaking of episodes, on the replay, which is where most of you see this, on clips or whatever, all of the social media channels is Wicked Wisdom with Bill Adams, and the live stream lives on all of those, as well as on X. Give me a follow as well. I appreciate you so much. We're almost into the weekend. Just got to get through Thursday. Tomorrow, probably talking about peace deals and something else, whatever comes across our desk to talk about. But whatever it is, make it awesome. I'll talk to you tomorrow.